The fall of the Eternal Fleet. The vast emptiness of space held no answers for Admiral Sarah Chen as she stood on the bridge of the UES Intrepid, watching the burning hulk of an alien warship drift silently through the void. It was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. A massive vessel that seemed to be crafted from living crystal and metal, its surface etched with patterns that pulsed with dying light. Life signs confirmed, Admiral. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station. Multiple signatures, but they're fading fast. Sarah's jaw tightened. First contact scenarios had been drilled into her head since her earliest days of the academy, but none of those simulations had prepared her for this moment. Launch rescue teams, full containment protocols, but our priority is saving lives. The rescue shuttles launched from the Intrepid's bays, their lights cutting through the darkness like falling stars. Sarah watched them approach the alien vessel, its crystalline structure now crackling with arcs of mysterious energy. Whatever had happened to this ship, it had been violent and decisive. Hours later, Sarah stood in the Intrepid's medical bay, facing the ship's sole surviving officer, a towering figure whose metallic scales shimmed under the harsh medical lights. Despite grievous injuries, the alien carried himself with unmistakable dignity. His translator crackled to life as he spoke. "I am Fleet Commander Zarak of the Vicar Eternal Fleet," he said, his voice resonating with both pride and exhaustion, or what remains of it. Sarah stepped forward, maintaining a respectful distance. "Admiral Sarah Chen, United Earth Space Force. Can you tell us what happened to your ship?" Zarek's crystalline eyes flickered with what might have been pain, whether physical or emotional. Sarah couldn't tell. "We encountered something that should not exist. The Void Collective, we called them. They emerged from the dark space between galaxies, consuming everything in their path." The commander's words painted a grim picture. The Vicar, a species far more advanced than humanity, had stood as guardians of their sector of space for millennia. Their eternal fleet was legendary among the spacefaring races, yet now it lay in ruins, scattered across dozens of systems. "We thought we were invincible," Zarek continued, his voice heavy with regret. "We had never known defeat, but the collective, they adapt. They learn. They consume technology and turn it against its creators. Our greatest strengths became our deadliest weaknesses." Sarah listened as Zarak described the fall of world after world, the destruction of civilizations that had stood for thousands of years. The Void Collective wasn't just an enemy. It was an extinction-level threat to all life in the galaxy. "Other species fled," he said, bitterness creeping into his translated words. "Our allies, those who swore eternal brotherhood with the Vicar, abandoned us when they realized the true scale of the threat. Better to hide in the dark spaces of the galaxy than face annihilation," they reasoned. Sarah felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders. Humanity was young among the stars, their technology primitive compared to the Vicar. They had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel, and their weapons were crude by galactic standards. Yet here they were, facing a choice that would define their species. "Commander Zarak," she said, standing straighter, "humanity may be young, and we may not have the most advanced technology, but we understand something about fighting against impossible odds. Earth's history is filled with moments where standing together made the difference between survival and extinction." Zarek's crystalline eyes studied her with new interest. "You offer alliance, even knowing what you face. The collective will show no mercy. They will not stop until every trace of resistance is erased from the galaxy." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Then they haven't encountered human stubbornness yet. We have a saying on Earth, the harder the fight, the stronger we become." For the first time, something like hope flickered in Zarak's eyes. Perhaps we were wrong about humanity. We dismissed your species as primitive, too young to understand the complexities of galactic civilization. But there is wisdom in your words, Admiral Chen. The medical bay's lights dimmed slightly as the Intrepid's power shifted to accommodate another wave of rescued Vicar crew members being brought aboard. Sarah watched as human medical teams worked tirelessly to save alien lives, adapting their procedures on the fly to account for completely foreign biology. "Your people show remarkable adaptability," Zarek observed. "Where others would hesitate, they act. Where others would fear difference, they embrace it." "It's who we are," Sarah replied simply. "We've learned that our greatest strength lies not in technology or weapons, but in our ability to face the unknown together. If this Void Collective threatens all life in the galaxy, then they threaten humanity too. We won't stand by and watch worlds burn." As she spoke, alerts began blaring throughout the ship. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice came over the intercom, tense but controlled. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system." Patterns match Commander Zarek's descriptions of Void Collective vessels. Sarah locked eyes with the Vicar commander. In that moment, an understanding passed between them. Two warriors from vastly different worlds, united by a common enemy and an unwavering determination to resist. "Well, Commander," Sarah said, her voice steady and resolute, "it seems we'll have a chance to prove humanity's worth sooner rather than later." Zarek straightened, despite his injuries. "Then let us show the collective that they face not just the remnants of the Eternal Fleet, but the combined strength of two peoples who refuse to submit to the darkness." As Sarah rushed back to the bridge, she knew that history would remember this moment, not just as humanity's first contact with the Vicar, but as the beginning of a partnership that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. The Void Collective was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous opponent isn't the one with the most advanced weapons, but the one with the unbreakable will to fight on, no matter the odds. Defiance against the dark. The Void Collective ships emerged from hyperspace like tears in the fabric of reality. Massive, geometric structures that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, watching as tactical displays tracked 23 hostile vessels entering the system. Against them stood 3 human ships and the crippled remains of the Vicar cruiser. "Their technology far exceeds our own," Commander Zarek said from his makeshift command station on the bridge. Despite the medical team's protests, he had insisted on being present. Even at full strength, the Eternal Fleet struggled to. "With respect, Commander," Sarah interrupted, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "We're not the Eternal Fleet. Lieutenant Rodriguez, begin broadcast on all frequencies." The young officer nodded, opening channels. Sarah's voice carried across the void, reaching not just her own ships, but the approaching collective vessels as well. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Force. We stand as allies of the Vicar people and guardians of this sector. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences of your aggression." Silence answered her ultimatum. The collective ships continued their advance, their formation spreading out to envelop the human Vicar forces. "They do not negotiate," Zarek stated grimly. "They only consume." Sarah's lips curved into a slight smile. "I know. I just wanted them in the right position. All ships, execute Operation Hornet's Nest." What happened next defied every convention of space warfare that the Vicar had known for millennia. The human ships, rather than forming a defensive line, scattered in seemingly random directions. From their launch bays erupted hundreds of small, unmanned drones, crewed by galactic standards, but piloted by the most sophisticated AI that Earth could produce. "Your weapons cannot penetrate their shields," Zarek warned, watching as the drones swarmed toward the collective vessels. "We're not trying to penetrate them," Sarah replied. "We're trying to overload them. Those drones are carrying experimental electromagnetic pulse generators. Individually, they're harmless. But together..." Understanding dawned in Zarek's crystalline eyes as the swarm of drones surrounded the nearest collective ship. Each drone began emitting powerful electromagnetic pulses, creating a cascading effect that interfered with the enemy's shield harmonics. The collective vessel's defenses flickered and warped, struggling to maintain coherence against the unconventional attack. "Multiple shield failures detected," Rodriguez reported, his voice tight with concentration. Their adaptive systems are attempting to compensate, but they can't adjust to all frequencies simultaneously. The collective ships began firing, their weapons cutting through space with terrifying precision. But the human vessels moved with unexpected agility, their smaller size and innovative maneuvers making them difficult targets. Each near miss was calculated, each evasion feeding more data to the ship's AI systems about the enemy's targeting patterns. Now comes the part they won't expect, Sarah announced. All ships, initiate solar burst protocols. The human vessels suddenly released clouds of reflective particles, millions of tiny mirrors that scattered the system's starlight in blinding flashes. To the collective sensors, calibrated for detecting energy weapons and shield frequencies, the light show created a chaotic mess of false readings. Zarak watched in amazement as the human forces turned seemingly primitive tactics into a sophisticated battle strategy. You're using their complexity against them, he realized. Their advanced sensors are actually making it harder for them to fight through your countermeasures. Sarah nodded grimly. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. Now, Commander, I believe your ship still has its main weapon systems intact. Yes, but without proper targeting. Zarak began. You don't need targeting, Sarah interrupted. Not when we can herd them exactly where we want them. She turned to her tactical officer. Phase 3. Drive them toward the Vicar cruiser. The drone swarms shifted their attack patterns, creating corridors of electromagnetic interference that forced the collective ships to adjust their positions. Bit by bit, they were being maneuvered into a killing zone, though they didn't realize it until it was too late. Fire everything, Sarah ordered. The Vicar cruiser's crystalline weapons came to life, unleashing devastating beams of energy at point-blank range into the clustered collective ships. Their compromised shields couldn't withstand the assault, and one by one, the massive vessels began to break apart. But victory came at a cost. The human drones were destroyed by the thousands, and one of the Earth ships, the UES Dauntless, suffered a direct hit that tore through its hull. The bridge crew watched in horror as their sister ship began to drift, its power systems failing. Launch rescue operations, Sarah commanded, even as more collective ships appeared at the system's edge. We don't leave our people behind. Zarak observed the humans' dedication to their fallen comrades with growing respect. Where his own allies had abandoned the Vicar in their hour of need, these humans risked everything to save even a handful of their own. You fight unlike any species I have encountered, he said as rescue shuttles raced toward the stricken Dauntless, not with overwhelming force or superior technology, but with innovation and an unwavering spirit. Sarah's expression was grim as she watched the new wave of collective ships approach. We fight with everything we have, Commander, and we're just getting started. The collective may have advanced technology, but they're about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon isn't found in our ships or our weapons. It's found in our refusal to give up. As if to emphasize her words, the remaining human vessels moved to protect the rescue operation, even as the second wave of collective ships entered weapons range. The battle was far from over, but something had changed in the galaxy's balance of power. For the first time since the Void Collective had emerged from dark space, they faced an enemy that didn't fight according to their rules. An enemy whose strength came not from technological superiority, but from the indomitable human spirit. When others fled, the emergency council chamber aboard the Vicar flagship Crystal Dawn hummed with tension as holographic representatives from across the galaxy flickered into existence. Admiral Chen stood beside Commander Zarak, watching as one by one, their supposed allies delivered their verdicts. The Meridian Concordat withdraws from this conflict, announced the crystalline form of the Meridian Prime. The cost is too great. We cannot sacrifice our civilization in a war we cannot win. The Sphere Collective follows suit, declared another alien leader, their energy-based form pulsing with what might have been regret or relief. Our predictive matrices show a 97% chance of total extinction if we continue this fight. One by one, The most powerful civilizations in the galaxy severed their ties with the Alliance. Species that had stood together for millennia now turned their backs, retreating to their own territories in hopes of surviving the Void Collective's advance. Sarah watched as Zarak's grip tightened on the council table, his metallic scales rippling with barely contained fury. The betrayal cut deep. These were races that had sworn eternal friendship to the Vicar, now abandoning them in their darkest hour. When the last hologram flickered out, silence filled the chamber. It was broken by the arrival of a new transmission, this one from Earth. The holographic form of United Earth Defense Council Chairman Martinez materialized before them. "Admiral Chen," Martinez began, his face grave. "We've reviewed the tactical data from your engagements with the Void Collective. The casualties, they're higher than anything humanity has faced since the Third World War." Sarah straightened, preparing herself for what she feared would be yet another withdrawal. But Martinez continued with a slight smile. "The Defense Council has voted unanimously to increase our commitment to this fight. We're dispatching everything we have, every ship, every soldier, every resource we can spare. Humanity stands with our Vicar allies." Zarek's crystalline eyes widened in surprise. "Chairman Martinez, you've seen the power of our enemy. Your civilization is young, your technology limited compared to those who just abandoned us. Why would you choose to stand and fight?" Martinez's hologram turned to face the Vicar commander. "Because, Commander Zarek, humanity has learned through bitter experience that running from a fight only gives your enemy time to grow stronger. We faced extinction-level threats before, on a smaller scale. Each time, it was our unity and determination that saw us through." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah and Zarek alone in the council chamber. The Vicar commander turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Your people continue to surprise me, Admiral. When the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy flee in terror, humanity charges forward." Sarah moved to the tactical display, bringing up images of the latest Void Collective movements. "We've had some advantages in our development, Commander. While other species evolved with superior physical abilities or advanced technology, humanity had to learn to overcome our limitations. We had to innovate, adapt, and most importantly, work together. Yet you must realize the magnitude of what we face." Zarek pressed. "The Void Collective grows stronger with each victory, absorbing and adapting our technology for their use. Even now, they're learning to counter your unconventional tactics. Then we'll create new ones," Sarah replied with quiet confidence. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't in our weapons or strategies. It's in our ability to keep getting back up when we're knocked down. We've spent our entire history fighting against overwhelming odds." The tactical display shifted to show Earth's shipyards, where vessels of human and Vicar design were being merged into hybrid warships. Engineers from both species worked side by side, combining Vicar crystal technology with human ingenuity. "Look at what we've accomplished in just 3 months," Sarah continued. "Your people thought our technology was primitive, but we found ways to integrate it with yours in ways nobody thought possible. We're creating something new, something the collective can't easily predict or counter." Zarek studied the images with growing interest. The hybrid ships represented a perfect fusion of Vicar precision and human adaptability. Where pure Vicar technology was vulnerable to the collective's ability to corrupt and control crystalline systems, human analog components provided a safeguard. Where human weapons lacked power, Vicar crystals amplified them to devastating effect. "Perhaps," Zarek said slowly, "this is why the collective fears us working together. They can absorb technology, but they cannot absorb the human spirit. Your unpredictability, your creativity, your sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat." A warning klaxon interrupted their discussion. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice came through the comm system. "Admiral, Commander, we're detecting multiple collective signatures entering the Orient sector. They're heading straight for Earth." Sarah's expression hardened. "They think targeting our homeworld will break our resolve. They don't understand that humanity fights hardest when backed into a corner." She turned to Zorak. "Commander, are you ready to show the galaxy what happens when the right allies stand together?" Zorak's metallic scales gleamed as he straightened to his full height. "The Vicar have always fought alone, believing our superiority was enough. We were wrong. Together with humanity, we will write a new chapter in galactic history, one that proves the strongest force in the universe isn't technology or numbers, but the unbreakable bond between warriors who refuse to submit to darkness." As they moved to the bridge to coordinate their defense, both leaders knew they were about to face their greatest test. The Void Collective was bringing its full might to bear against Earth, hoping to crush the last significant resistance in the galaxy. But they were about to learn that humanity, standing shoulder to shoulder with the Vicar, was capable of things that defied all rational prediction. The battle for Earth was about to begin, and with it, the chance to prove that sometimes the greatest victories come not from superior strength, but from the courage to stand and fight when others flee. The heart of warriors. Earth hung like a blue jewel in the void, its orbital defense platforms glinting in the sunlight. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned UES Defiant, a hybrid vessel that represented the perfect fusion of human and Vicar technology. Beside her, Commander Zorak watched as the largest Void Collective fleet ever encountered emerged from hyperspace. 317 vessels, Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the odds they faced. "They've committed their entire primary fleet to this attack." "As we hoped they would," Sarah replied, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Sometimes the best trap is the one your enemy thinks they're setting for you." The combined human Vicar defense fleet numbered barely 100 ships, but each vessel had been modified with technology that neither species could have created alone. Crystalline cores pulsed with power, enhanced by human-designed electromagnetic fields that made them resistant to the Collective's corruption attempts. "All ships, battle formations," Sarah commanded. "Remember your training. Remember what we fight for. Today, we show the galaxy that it's not the size of the force that matters, but the strength of its heart." The Void Collective struck first, their massive ships unleashing a barrage that lit up space like artificial stars. But the defending fleet didn't break formation. Instead, they executed a maneuver that would have been impossible just months ago. The hybrid ship's crystalline cores synchronized, creating a network defense grid that distributed the impact of enemy fire across multiple shields. "They still think they're fighting either humans or Vicar," Zorak observed as their fleet weathered the initial assault. "They haven't adapted to what we've become together." Sarah nodded. "That's their weakness. They can absorb technology, but they can't understand the power of true cooperation." Launch Operation Firebreak. From Earth's surface, hundreds of missiles streaked into space, primitive chemical rockets that the Collective's sensors barely registered as threats. But hidden within each missile was a payload of Vicar crystal shards, each programmed with a fraction of a much larger plan. As the missiles detonated, they released clouds of crystalline dust that the Collective ships automatically began to absorb, their adaptive technology attempting to assimilate what it perceived as valuable resources. It was exactly what Sarah and Zorak had counted on. "Now," Sarah ordered, "activate the resonance sequence." Every human Vicar ship activated their modified crystal cores simultaneously, sending out a precise frequency that transformed the absorbed crystal dust into a network of disruptive nodes inside the Collective vessels. The enemy ships began to shudder as their systems fought against an attack from within. "They're attempting to adapt," Rodriguez reported, calculating new attack vectors. "They always adapt," Sarah acknowledged. "That's why we keep changing the rules. All ships switch to Phase 2. Show them what humanity learned from 10,000 years of warfare on Earth." The defending fleet broke apart into smaller groups, each executing tactics drawn from Earth's military history. Some ships performed movements inspired by ancient Roman legion formations. Others employed strategies from naval warfare of the 20th century. Each group operated independently yet remained part of a greater whole, creating chaos that the Collective's unified consciousness struggled to counter. But the enemy's overwhelming numbers began to tell. One by one, human and Vicar ships succumbed to the relentless assault. The collective pressed their advantage, pushing closer to Earth with each passing minute. "We've lost 30% of our fleet," Rodriguez announced grimly. "Shields are failing on multiple vessels." Sarah's jaw tightened as she watched another Allied ship explode. These weren't just losses on a tactical display. They were people she knew, humans and Vicar fighting side by side to protect everything they held dear. "Admiral," Zarek said quietly, "perhaps it's time to consider the evacuation protocols. Earth's population." "No," Sarah cut him off. "We're not running. Humanity didn't come this far to abandon our home." She keyed the fleet-wide comm. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. I know we're tired. I know we're hurting. But look around you. Look at what we've accomplished together. Two species that barely knew each other 6 months ago, now fighting as one." She paused, watching as her words reached every ship in the fleet. "The collective thinks they can break us with superior numbers. They think we'll run like the others did, but they don't understand what makes us strong. It's not our technology or our tactics. It's our hearts, our determination to stand together, to protect not just our own worlds but each other's." As if in response to her words, the Defiant's crystal core pulsed brighter, its human-engineered containment systems allowing it to channel more power than any pure Vicar vessel could handle. Similar reactions spread through the fleet as human and Vicar crews pushed their hybrid ships beyond their designed limits. "All ships," Sarah commanded, her voice firm with resolve. "Execute Operation Heartfire." The defending fleet began to move in perfect synchronization, their crystal cores resonating at frequencies that had never been attempted before. The space between the ships seemed to warp and twist as human determination merged with Vicar technology in ways that defied conventional physics. The collective ships faltered, their adaptive systems overwhelmed by an attack that wasn't just technological but seemed to carry the combined will of two species fighting for survival. For the first time, the enemy's unified consciousness experienced something it couldn't quantify or counter: the indomitable spirit of humanity, amplified by Vicar crystalline technology. Multiple collective vessels showing critical system failures, Rodriguez reported, excitement creeping into his voice. "Their formation is breaking apart." Zarek's crystalline eyes gleamed as he watched the tide of battle turn. "In all our history, the Vicar never imagined we would find strength in joining with a younger species. We thought power came from advancement, from perfection. But you humans, you showed us that true strength comes from the heart." Sarah allowed herself a small smile as she watched their combined fleet press their advantage. "A heart of warriors, Commander. That's what beats in every human and Vicar who chose to stand and fight today. And that's what the collective will never understand. You can't absorb or adapt to the power of the spirit." The battle for Earth raged on, but something fundamental had changed. The Void Collective, for the first time since it emerged from dark space, faced an enemy it couldn't predict or control. In the heart of humanity's home system, two species fought as one, proving that the strongest force in the universe wasn't technology or numbers, but the unbreakable spirit of those who refused to submit to darkness. Last edited. Legacy of Two Worlds. In the aftermath of the battle for Earth, the Void Collective's massive fleet lay in ruins, their once invincible ships reduced to drifting debris that painted the stars with crystalline fragments. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the UES Defiant, watching as repair crews from both human and Vicar vessels worked together to salvage what they could from the wreckage. "The collective's consciousness is trying to regroup," Commander Zarek reported, joining her at the viewport. "Their remaining ships are converging at their primary hub in the Perseus Arm. They're calling every available vessel for a final stand." Sarah nodded, her expression resolute. "Then that's where we'll end this. Not just for Earth or the Vicar worlds, but for every species that lives in fear of their shadow." She turned to face her friend and ally. Are you ready to finish what we started? The massive Vicar commander's scales rippled with anticipation. For the first time in our history, the Vicar go to battle not as leaders, but as equals. You humans have taught us that true strength isn't measured by technological superiority, but by the bonds we forge. The combined fleet gathered for their final assault, a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ingenuity had transformed Vicar crystal technology, creating ships that were more than just weapons of war. Each vessel represented the perfect synthesis of two cultures, two approaches to warfare, two ways of seeing the universe. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, messages began flooding in from across the galaxy. The species that had abandoned them, that had fled rather than face the collective's might, were watching. They saw something they had never thought possible. A young race standing shoulder to shoulder with one of the galaxy's most ancient civilizations, not just surviving but triumphing. "Admiral," Rodriguez called from his station, "we're receiving transmission requests from the Meridian Concordat, the Sphere Collective, and a dozen other species. They're offering to join us." Sarah exchanged a knowing look with Zorak. "Tell them they're welcome to observe, Lieutenant. But this fight belongs to those who never gave up, who stood firm when others ran. The galaxy needs to understand that loyalty and courage aren't measured by convenience." The journey to the Perseus Arm was silent, each crew member, human and Vicar alike, preparing in their own way for what lay ahead. The Void Collective's primary hub was a massive structure that defied conventional physics, a construct that existed partially in normal space and partially in the void between dimensions.